Ask Boris. Mayor of London Boris Johnson takes your calls with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. This is Ask Boris on LBC.
It's 9 o'clock on Tuesday, the 5th of August. Most people are heading off on their summer holidays, but we're still here. This is Boris Johnson bringing you your latest edition of Ask Boris on LBC. I'm here for the next 45 minutes with my trusty helpmeet, Mr. Nick Ferrari. This is your chance to put any question you like to me, and I will do my best to answer. Here are the numbers for you to get your questions on the air: 0345 6060 973, or email boris@lbc.co.uk. Don't forget, you can also watch Ask Boris in high definition on the website. But first of all, we're going to go to our caller, Gerald in St John's Wood. Gerald.
Morning, Boris. I'm actually not in St John's
You're
Wood
not?
at this moment.
Well, that's okay.
I'm in Covent Garden.
Well, this is fantastic. The speed of London transport. You can one minute you're there, next minute you're in Covent Garden.
I actually walked, but that's another story. Hey, morning, Boris. Can I ask you two questions? It's a bit cheeky, actually.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind. I was asking to do one. One of the questions is, how do you think people in this country, politicians, can negotiate Europe? I think it's the same as, negotiating with the Gestapo. I mean, they have the same concepts as the Gestapo. They want to have a Europe which is controlled by an elitist group of people, and we think we can negotiate with them. I think we've got no hope in hell's chance. The other question is that don't you think Nick Clegg's completely cynical? Because he's, 1 minute he's arguing with Nigel Farage about, more European integration and open borders and all this, and now all of a sudden he's changed his mind. Maybe because he's lost. They're on
2% in the polls. I think that might partly explain.
2% of the polls, exactly. So, what's your take on that?
Well, on the first point, obviously, Gerald, I think that the way to argue with these people, way to negotiate, is to look to their own interest, and it's in the interest of Europe to reform. That's what David Cameron has been saying. I think he's completely right, and I think that he'll be pushing through an agenda of reform, and that's a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about in a speech I'm going to give tomorrow on that subject. And as for old Cleggers, well, look, I think, what happened with the whole European immigration issue was that people got totally fed up because politicians were saying one thing about what they could do with the immigration caps. They're saying they could cap immigration, and you had a whole load of, Australian physiotherapists and nurses and what have you told to push off, and New Zealand scientists and whatever. Absolutely true. Look at the numbers. Yet we've been completely unable to restrict the entry of people from the EU 27 or 28, whatever it is. And look at it. We've been unable to meet these caps, and I think that's why they're belatedly coming to the party and saying that we've got to slap on new measures. My view is immigration is good. It's good for the country. It's been good for London. 40% of the people in this city were born abroad, as far as I know. It's London's contributing now 25% of UK GDP, partly thanks to the dynamism of that economy. I don't want to kick everybody out. What I want is to have talented people and hard-working people who want to make their lives here, and that's the way the city has always flourished.
So David Cameron's promise to get net migration down to tens of thousands was ridiculous.
I think the Prime Minister was on the right track. It made no sense as long as you have a system which forbids you from controlling the numbers coming in from 28 countries. I'm pro-immigration, but I think what we need is we need a much better system of derogations with the 2004 accession countries. That was a complete cock-up, by the previous.
So how do we go forward
government.
now?
Well, I think that what they're trying to do now is sensible. They're trying to restrict access to benefits and all that kind of thing. But I think that Britain is the effect. London is like the America of the European Union. You look at the composition, you look at the way the economy works. It's a place of massive opportunity. And in America, they have very serious immigration controls, and they say, yes, you can come in, you can be American, you can make your life here, but you've got to pass this and this and this test before you can get a green card. And I've got no particular problem with that.
Right. Bring Gerald back in. Gerald.
Well, I just do think that we have too much immigration. I mean, I agree we should improve the quality of immigration, and we should make it so that people can't come in and enjoy benefit holidays, of course. But how we have a census every 10 years or 12 years, 10 years, and we spend X billion, 2 billion. It's a complete waste of money.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
Well, I know.
How many roads to build, how
that's
many hospitals
completely
to
right.
build.
That is the key point. And that's the point.
It's just too, I think that's, Boris, if you allow me to finish, we have too many people going for these, too many people in the country, in London specifically, where we got too much road congestion, and we haven't got enough school places.
Yes,
I mean, how can we
all those points
hospitals and schools?
All those points are broadly correct. I mean, the actual numbers in London, we're about, I think, in the next couple of weeks, we're about finally to exceed our last record. So London is going to be bigger than it was in 1939 for the first time. And that is a function not just of immigration, by the way, Gerald. It's also a function of the natural live birth rate. That's the main reason. And also, it's because people are living longer. I'm proud to say, under my mayoralty, you may not believe this, but the average life expectancy since I've been mayor has gone up by, I think, 1.5 years for a woman and something like 1.8 years for a man. I don't know why men are living longer than women, but or proportionally longer. But
life feels like
it's not. The answer will end eventually. Life expectancy has gone up
to the end of it,
and the number of babies has massively increased. When you have people living longer and more babies, what you get is a population boom. And where Gerald is right is you have the extra factor, which I'm afraid that I totally blame the Labour government for, which was the uncontrolled immigration from
But you want immigration. You just said you agree with immigration. You don't want to put any checks
I want
up.
managed immigration. I want checks.
So what are you going to be saying tomorrow? Without stealing your thunder.
Well, you have to come. I hope to see you in the. I've said a lot of it just now, but come and see. I haven't actually. But come and see. Come and.
Well, it's been seen as rather a challenge to the Prime Minister. Why are you challenging him over Europe?
On the contrary, what I want to do is to.
Well, you said you mustn't be unafraid of coming out of Europe.
Yes, I think that's right. And not to, as you put it, steal my thunder tomorrow, what I will be arguing is that there are all sorts of viable futures for this country, and we don't have to be afraid. And there is a great and glorious future for Britain in Europe if we can reform it. But there might also be a great and glorious future, and I'm sure there is a great and glorious future, as an open, outward-looking economy that has great relations, great trading relations with Europe, but starts to think more and more about the rest of the world, where
it comes out of
where
Europe.
you're seeing huge growth.
So it comes out of Europe.
What I'm saying is, I'm saying to people should not be paranoid and scared about that option. I think there's a lot of unnecessary apprehension.
You've got a touch of the Farages.
No. I've always said this, and I've said this for years and years. I think that listen, there are many attractive features of working closely with our friends, our partenaires européens. Voilà. I mean, send it to French if you want my European credentials. I believe in massive British engagement with Europe, but patently there is a crisis. There's an economic crisis. Look at the low growth in the Eurozone, and there's a political crisis.
And how afraid is Mr. Cameron, do you think, of coming out of Europe?
I don't think there's any need to be afraid. I doubt the Prime Minister is afraid of any such thing. But what I do think we need to do is to be absolutely confident that we can argue for a deal that would be good for Europe. And if we fail to get that, if we fail for any reason to get an improvement in the way the EU functions in the course of the renegotiation, which the Prime Minister has rightly called for, then I think it follows that we've got also to be prepared for a life outside and a different kind of relationship. There will be all sorts of ways in which we will maintain our friendship, our partnership, free trade in goods particularly, expanding trade in services, we would hope, with the European Union. But it might be a different relationship, and we have nothing to fear.
We move on to other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Come on, Rory in Swanley.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Boris.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Boris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Beautiful day here in Swanley, I have to say.
It's a cracker. It's a cracker here. They were in the bowels of LBC. But...
Okay, I have a quick question for you, Boris. It's about the tags thing for alcohol-related crimes. Now, when I first heard about it, I was up in arms about it. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I managed to beat the illness. But
Rory, go on.
But my question, I'm coming on to my question. Only through the benefits of Alcoholics Anonymous, which was the only thing that worked for me. My question to you is, who will the tags be applied to?
Yeah.
And secondly, at what point will they be applied? Because my belief is that it's a great idea, but it could be closing the stable door after the horse has bolted.
Well, look, let's be absolutely clear, Rory. And we said this very loud and clear in the launch in Croydon. This is not meant for people such as yourself. This is not meant for people who are, who have been recovering alcoholics, or people who've had long-term chronic problems with alcohol. This is really for people who get tanked up on a Saturday night, do something unbelievably stupid, regret it bitterly, but know that if they get on the booze again, there is a likelihood that they will do it. And then they're not chronic alcoholics. They don't suffer from that particular problem. But the tags are a way of getting them off it and of keeping them off it and of punishing them. Let's be absolutely clear. This is intended as a punitive measure. The judges. It's very interesting talking to the judges who've been dishing them out a bit in some of their family law cases, and they were very pro it. They do think it works. They're unbelievably reliable and surprisingly hard to get off. I mean, you really can't get the thing off. So we're going to see how it goes. We're going to test it on 150 people. There will be people of roughly the sort I've described. We won't be using it for cases of domestic violence, Rory, because that's, you've got very sensitive issues there, and you've got to be careful how the tag can play into the drama of the household there, and you've got to be very careful that things don't exacerbate the situation. And we won't be using it for cases like yourself, where really the answer may be more complicated and where people need different kinds of support to help them get off the alcohol. So there you go. That's we're going to try. And are we going now to John in Bayswater?
Rory, thank you.
Rory.
We move on, Mr. Mayor. Who are we going to next?
We're going to John in Bayswater.
Hello, Boris.
Thank you, John. Hi.
I really think it's time for the properly imposed speed limit for all cyclists.
Right.
Certainly within central London.
You mean a maximum speed? I can barely reach 12 miles an hour anymore.
Yeah, well, if you were around Marble Arch, you'd be reaching more than 12 miles an hour, I promise, on the corner of the park.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Can I expand a little bit? I mean, I've recently undergone major surgery, and it's just not funny at all, around here. Trying to cross over, by Edgware Road, where these cyclists come flying around. There's so many blind spots.
Yeah.
You just can't see, and they're sort of they don't pay any attention to the lights at all, as you well know.
Yeah, yeah.
And they come flying up round the bend there, and you can be halfway across the crossing, when it's green.
Yeah.
And, your life's in danger.
I understand, John.
And the corner of the park, is even worse. You go around there and they're flying at you from all directions.
Yeah, yeah.
All directions, I mean, you just cannot cross. They're coming from every direction.
Listen, I mean, you're speaking there, I know, for many, many people who do feel that cyclists can be too aggressive and who imperil them on the pavements, on the roads, and by jumping red lights and so on. And that's why we've introduced Operation Safeway, which is a big operation led by the Met to nab cyclists, to collar them and to fine them if they breach the rules of the road. And
how many officers are involved in Operation Safeway?
A large number that I can't remember.
Well,
I think it's about 2,500 from memory. About 2,500. It's a big
police
operation.
Officers involved in Operation Safeway.
About 2,500. And from
how
memory,
long has it been running?
Since I think we've had several goes at it. I mean, since over the last few months. I mean, I think it began in. If you remember, we had a spate of accidents in November last year.
Yes.
And of some very sad fatalities. And we put it in first of all. We didn't call it Operation Safeway. That was what happened, and actually it had dramatic effect. We reduced the number of collisions, we reduced the number of casualties, reduced the number of KSIs. We're continuing to do that. People who are killed or seriously injured. And although we did find a lot of cyclists, we also find some motorists too.
Right.
And the objective is just to get everybody to understand the rules of the road and to get people to be responsible. And that goes obviously for cyclists as well as anybody else.
But what about this idea? This gentleman is and we wish you well with your recovery, by the way, of course, John. But having trouble crossing the road, is there an idea? The speed limits apply to everybody, don't they?
Yes. I mean, we'd have to look at the practicality of speed limits for cyclists. I think it'd be quite difficult to measure. It's going to be very rare that a cyclist is actually in town going to be going over 20 miles.
What did you think of that idea of a pootling lane as put forward by that?
Yeah, I saw that. Meg Hillier, I think it was.
Yes, it was Meg Hillier.
I mean, I think it's an interesting. I mean, the aspiration is right. The difficulty is that you can't.
Where are you going to get the road space?
Exactly. There's no space on the roads for there's
pootling lane.
Lanes for anybody.
Lane for jugglers, next, as was once famously said.
Lane for jugglers.
Yes, they'll get their own lane as well.
Jugglers.
It's from 2012. It's a very funny television show. We move on, which lampooned you mercilessly, by the way. That's why I enjoyed it so. I have it on.
I was too busy getting ready the Olympics to worry about that.
Rude about you. I love
very
it.
Good.
We
very
move
good.
on.
Come on. No one's been rude about me so far. Joan in Wallington.
Oh, hello, Boris.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you tell me who made that terrible mistake in one of your offices and not realising there's a difference between a tenth and percentage? Because you said the congestion charge is going to go up in line with inflation, that's 1.5%.
Right.
And instead it went up by 15%.
15. That is a gross error. I apologise.
What are you going to do?
Joan, I'm going to grovel to you on air, and I'm going to find out how that went wrong.
Did go wrong?
I don't remember saying that. But though doubtless Mr. Ferrari will produce a recording of me saying that.
I haven't got the recording to hand, but I know that Joan will be right because she always is.
I bet Joan is right. I'm very sorry, Joan. I will find out how that happened. But you know, it is nonetheless true that the rise is in line with inflation, as far as I know,
not at 15%.
Over the period.
Oh, over the extent. Look, while we're on the subject of congestion charge, can I bring in the fact that people with diesel cars now, effectively they're going to have to be Bernie Ecclestone or a Premier League football player to be able to afford to drive into London. How fair is that?
Well, this is not. I mean, this is not designed just to hit people, who have diesel cars, but people who have old diesel cars. And
it's not a crime to have an old diesel car.
It isn't. But we think that there's absolutely no reason at all why people should not be able, by 2020, with a 6 years' notice now, if they're worried about this, if they think they will have a diesel car that's 6 years or older, they can easily trade it in for a petrol car that is 14. That by 2020 will be 14 years or older. So they can get round it that way. The problem with diesel is that everybody made this colossal mistake. The European Commission thought that it was they could put in the catalytic converters in the Euro 4 standard, I think it was, that would sort it out. It totally failed to deliver in real life. It was okay on the test track. In real life, it was hopeless at reducing the emissions in the way that the EU promised. And as everybody knows, we've got a problem of diesel pollution in London. We've got to beat it. We can beat it. We can beat it with new technology, but we need to bring in cleaner vehicles across the board. We're doing it not just with cars, but with buses, with taxis, with vans, the whole lot.
All right. While we're on the subject of public transport, I have to tell you, I must share with you a number of emails that I'm having. Jocelyn, Jenny in Westminster, the problems with the new Routemaster buses, windows that do not open, air conditioning that's blowing out hot air. We decided actually to ride, I think it was the number 24. This is what we found out.
Oh. Hi, I'm Sarah. I live in Peckham. I use the buses every day to get to work and around. And my question for Boris is, as prices go up every year, how is Transport for London planning on keeping prices affordable for Londoners?
This is ideal living in Buckingham. To me, the bus is too hot. In the summer, we couldn't enjoy it. And two, it's not too spacious. I don't know what are you going to do about it.
My name is Janice. I'm currently on the 24 bus going from my lunch break back to Pimlico. This bus is incredibly hot. I'd prefer if more buses had air conditioning. Are you planning on putting air conditioning onto more buses going towards central London?
Well, all I can say is I apologise to Jocelyn and Jenny and all the rest of our passengers if they were uncomfortable. The stuff that I have asked TfL about this repeatedly, and they assure me that, and they've taken thermometers and they've done all this sort of stuff. They say that there's no difference between the top of a new generation bus and any other bus, and yes, there should be decent air cooling systems on all buses,
but there's not. There's not. There's a whole Twitter feed, whole Twitter stream going on about this. TfL, as usual, getting on the 148 was like entering a sauna on the way to Hyde Park. Do these things have aircon? It's about 40 degrees in here. There's another one here. Can we have gas masks?
Well, I
as
went
well?
on.
The new
I
buses-
went on and I asked the passengers. They said it was cool upstairs. So I'm
Did they mean cool as in temperature, or
No,
just
no,
cool
well,
as...
probably both. But I mean, that was what they said. I mean, I obviously, you know, we got to take these criticisms very much.
How many complaints
to
have
heart.
TfL had about heat on the buses?
I can't tell you that.
Why?
Because I don't have the figure in front of me. But I will find out.
Why have they declined to answer a question from one particular person who's asked about the number of problems they've had with heat on? Why won't TfL say?
Well, I don't know. Well, we'll get on to them.
Why won't they say how many passengers are unable to board or alight via the rear platform or door?
If they have that information, I'll make
Why
sure
have TfL refused to reveal how many complaints have been about unpleasant smells and odours on these new buses?
I don't know.
How big a problem have we got with the new route master?
A microscopically small problem, I would say, but obviously...
In the blazing heat out there, why can't we open the window? How hard would it have been to put an opening window in?
Well, I just want to get back to the thing I said a moment ago, which is that the evidence that we have, and we really have tested this out, is that there are new bus, which is a wonderful machine, by the way. It substantially reduces emissions in the way that we've said. It improves air quality in the city.
But not in the... if you're stuck on a blazing hot bus.
There is the information we have is there's
25 degrees outside, 40
difference
degrees inside.
There is no difference between the top of these buses and the...
You know what an LBC reporter is going to be doing this today, don't you? In the heat of the sun.
I support you. I support all investigators, and he will have a wonderful time. The best bus in the world, or she. Sorry, forgive me.
Oh, okay.
He or she.
We move on. We move.
Or they. I mean, you might as well send fleets. I think you should obviously send several.
We'll have to go up and down on the 23, and then up and down on the
24,
50 through 24, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. And just before we move on, how much is a bus ticket?
It is £1.40.
Oh, that was not bad, actually. Well done. 145.
Anyway, and it is, and let me tell you that I'm amazed we can do it as cheaply as that, given the investment.
Come on, if three of you want to, you may as well get a black taxi if there are three of you. It'd be much cheaper than a bus.
Look, you know, obviously, the cost of transport is high in this city. I accept that, but
actually, one of the callers said, "What about prices?" Didn't she?
Yeah, no, that's right. And actually, our producers accidentally came into my earphones rather than yours and said, "Ask him about prices."
So you were tipped off.
I was tipped off.
Oh, well, hang on. They're giving you... That means... What am I going to do? I'm going to hear your people in my ear.
I don't know what's going on.
That'll go even better.
I don't know what's going on.
Now, we have a note being handed to you by one of your team.
Yeah.
Do you wish to respond to that?
No, not especially.
Okay.
But I'm just being advised of a...
Yes, well, I wonder if I can bring you up to speed. Baroness Varsi, who's the Foreign Office Minister, obviously Conservative, has just tweeted she's standing down. She can no longer support the government policy on Gaza. So the Foreign Office Minister, Baroness Varsi, resigns. Boris Johnson?
Well, I would say it's very sad when any government minister resigns, and I've got a great respect for her. I think she's done a great job for us, and I hope she'll be back as soon as possible.
Can you support the government policy on Gaza?
Well, look, my view as Mayor of London, as I've said ever since I was elected, and you know, we've been around this track many, many times, is that it's not the function of the mayor to get deeply embroiled in something.
Must have a view.
That's something that divides London so bitterly. If you want my view, yes, I do think that what is happening in Gaza is utterly horrifying and unacceptable. And everybody, and on that point, there is no difference between politicians. I think that there's no point in us all politicians getting into a kind of bidding war about who can issue the most, frenzied denunciations of what is going on. It is obviously horrifying, and I want it to stop, and I pray it stops. I cannot for the life of me see how this can be a sensible strategy. On the other hand, the people will put countervailing arguments about the difficulties of a population facing rocket fire and all the rest of it, but it is not, I want to repeat, it is not my function as mayor to try and arbitrate or adjudicate in this matter.
But you have a lot of people of Israeli descent living in this town, and you have a lot of people of Palestinian support.
I have a lot of sympathy with people in Gaza who are in absolute terror of their lives. Of course I do.
So the way Israel is behaving is...
Look,
disproportionate?
I would certainly say it was disproportionate. I would not. I certainly believe it's disproportionate. I mean, I'm a passionate Zionist. I'm a supporter of Israel. I've been on a kibbutz, for heaven's sake.
You're a Zionist?
Yeah, I believe, in the sense I believe in the existence of the State of Israel. I believe in the existence of the State of Israel. But
and what about a state for Palestine?
And I believe in a two-state solution. I cannot for the life of me see how this helps us get there. I think that it is disproportionate. I think it is ugly, and it is tragic. And I don't think it will do Israel any good in the long run. But in having that opinion, I'm merely echoing what everybody else is, I think, saying at the moment. What these guys need to do is have a ceasefire on both sides.
Well, it seems to be holding so far.
And sort it out. But it has been absolutely devastating to watch it.
How helpful was it for the Palestinian flag to fly above Tower Hamlets Town Hall last week?
As I say, London is a city that brings together communities across the world, and we must not, if we can possibly avoid it, import onto our streets the tensions and the divisions that you see around the world. And that's been my approach as mayor. I've wanted to bring people together. I have Muslim antecedents and I have Jewish antecedents and all the rest of it. But that should be totally irrelevant. This is a city that is about certain values that we defend and we uphold. And yes, I would like to see those values upheld around the world, but we're not going to sort it out. I'm not going to sort this problem out from City Hall, and it would be pretentious to try to do so.
So what you're saying is if Israelis and Palestinians got on better, we'd have a legion of Boris Johnsons?
Well,
with your antecedents.
Look, it's not for me to map out the future for that part of the world. But yes, I mean, if you want I would like to see, that was the original vision, by the way. The original vision, when you go back to 1917 and you look at what the Balfour Declaration was all about, you look at what they hoped to achieve. They hoped to achieve a homeland, what the government in its sort of, incoherence in 19... They hoped to achieve a homeland for the Jewish people, but they also hoped that there would be a huge benefit for the indigenous population as well. And in retrospect, it appears completely starry-eyed and idealistic, but, there's a place in this world for idealism, I think.
Let's move to other questions, Mr. Mayor. Who's up next?
We are going, I don't know. Where are we? Come on.
Emma in Fulham, I think.
Emma, where's Emma? Sorry, forgive me, Emma in Fulham.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I returned to England after an absence of 34 years, almost 3 years ago, and I'm living in what is termed as affordable housing, which is no longer affordable. I listened to your debate at the O2 building a few months ago, and I was the first caller afterwards.
Oh, right.
But nothing has changed.
Okay.
Originally, this building was constructed for key workers, but other tenants have been allowed in thereafter.
Right.
It's not affordable, Mr. Mayor, for people, for example, who have children at university or at college. My daughter's going to take an access to law course in September.
What sort of tenancy do you have, Emma?
It's an unlimited tenancy. It's 2 rooms.
So are you a council tenant?
No, unfortunately I'm not. I don't fit into that category, although I'm an indigenous person. They won't entertain the fact that I'm in serious need.
So right. What is your question?
What sort of tenancy do you have, though? I'm trying to...
an indefinite contract. However,
right.
The contract has gone up by 39%. The building was opened.
This is a contract with the borough, is it?
Yes, with the borough of Fulham and Hammersmith.
Yeah, okay.
I pay £1,257.52 per month.
Right.
There is no deposit. What's ridiculous is it's a fabulous area. I grew up in Putney. I went to school in Fulham. I left. I came back because this is what I know, and I didn't know where else to go other than Cheltenham, where I went to college for a couple of years.
I've got to move you to your question then. What exactly is your question,
Emma? It's too expensive.
Yep. Okay, right.
Well, let's get the mayor in on that.
Thank you for raising this, Emma. I mean, this is obviously something that we'll need to take up with Hammersmith and Fulham Council. And find out what the circumstances are, and why you're being asked to, whether your rent has gone up in that way. If this is a council tenancy, and they should be protecting that, and we will try and get to the bottom of that. I'm just going to, if I may, Emma, the basic answer to this big problem is to build more affordable housing across London for all types of tenures, for affordable rent, for social rent, for private rent, and for sale too, and for mixed tenure, so people can part buy, part rent. And now, actually, you're starting to see now, after a long period of stagnation, you're starting to see massive growth in house and home building in London, and that is, that obviously not much comfort to you at the moment, Emma, but we will try to get you a proper answer about what's happening with your rent.
OK, quick question before we go to the news. This is via the emails. Bruno in Bexley. How fair is it that Ed Miliband and Nick Clegg are under attack for not signing personal cards on wreaths yesterday, and are you guilty, Boris?
Just on that, Bruno, I saw I saw the story. And, I try to write personal cards on the wreaths that we lay, for instance, for the 7/7 victims. We always do that. I always do that if I can. But I looked at that.
Yes.
And
just remind listeners,
what happened? What seemed to happen? Yeah. I think we should be fair to these guys, because it seemed to me.
Why?
Because they were, as far as I understand, they were handed a wreath at the last moment.
Oh, come on, Mr. Mayor.
Which had this.
They've known of this for months, possibly years, what was going on. It's up to your office to say, right, who's giving me the wreath, and can I get the card?
Well, you can be.
Well, the Prime Minister managed it, and Prince Charles managed it, and Ed Miliband can't, and Nick Clegg.
I'm just saying that it strikes me that just looking.
Did you lay a wreath anywhere yesterday, Mr. Mayor?
I didn't actually know,
right,
but as I said to you, when I do lay a wreath, I write the card.
Right. So your office manages
I'm just trying to be a little bit defensive. I don't know why I'm trying to be. I could just jump on the bandwagon if I wanted, couldn't I?
Do you want to review?
Why don't I just jump on the bandwagon and beat them up?
Why don't you reconsider your position?
No, because I think actually.
But that's what you have your teams for.
Yeah. Well, okay. Beat up their teams. But as far as I can see, the story I read seemed to me to suggest that this was a last-minute thing. The wreath was shoved into their hands, and
they've had 100 years to prepare for this.
Yeah, they certainly have.
Well, they've had much. You don't get the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, the Deputy Prime Minister room without weeks, months of phone calls and emails and meetings.
All I can say is it is a savage lesson for that team, and they will know in future, in 100 years' time, they will know to ask for the wreath in advance, and they will know to make sure they sign it.
Well, your team is obviously battle-hardened.
Well, of course we are. But all I'm saying is people. I can't find it in my heart, I have to tell you, to feel totally vengeful towards the Clegg and whoever it was, Miliband, for this mistake. It was a mistake. But as far as I can see, it was on the scale of things, it was forgivable.
More of your questions to London Mayor Boris Johnson after the news here on LBC 9:32.
Foreign Office Minister Baroness Farsi has resigned over the government's policy on Gaza. She says she's written to the Prime Minister this morning to tender her resignation. It says a 3-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is currently underway in Gaza. London Mayor Boris Johnson's told LBC Israel's actions in the conflict have been disproportionate and that what is happening in Gaza is horrifying.
I think that it is disproportionate, I think it is ugly, and it is tragic, and I don't think it will do Israel any good in the long run. But in having that opinion, I'm merely echoing what everybody else is, I think, saying at the moment.
The Deputy Prime Minister is accusing David Cameron of being so fixated on reducing immigration, he's failed to shore up Britain's borders. Nick Clegg will say in a speech in London the government needs to introduce tighter controls and reintroduce exit checks. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge will each add a ceramic poppy this morning to an art installation at the Tower of London, symbolising the lives lost during the First World War. More than 800,000 poppies will be planted by volunteers in the coming weeks. And to 9:15, the FTSE was up 30 at 67.08. And LBC weather, dry with sunny spells this morning for London and the South East. Turning cloudier, though, through the day. Highs of 23 degrees. Showers to start off for the southwest of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Then mostly fine and dry across central and eastern parts of the UK with warm sunny spells. Scotland fine and dry, but the chance of scattered showers later. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
I'm Andy McCall in the LBC Travel Centre for the trains to and from King's Cross, up to half an hour delays on First Capital Connect and East Coast. That's all because of problems with power supply in Bedfordshire. And for Chiltern services to and from Malvern and Aylesbury and up to Amersham as well, we're looking at disruption because of some signal problems as well. And that means at least a half hour delays as well. For services through London Bridge on all services, 20 minutes extra on your journey as well, like Groundhog Day compared to yesterday. Western stretch, the M25, anti-clockwise, just stop-start 14 round to a 10. It's the second day we've had this as well, round from Heathrow towards the Wisley turn. Bellingham in the southeast of London and South End Lane is closed westbound between Brookshouse Road and Arnulf Street. And in East Dulwich, Lordship Lane on the South Circular is partially blocked at Underhill Road. Keeping you moving. This is LBC.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Up your game with a free 30-day trial.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton. Wake up to over 25 hotels across the UK and Europe.
Hey Dave, it's your round, mate.
Yeah, my throat's drier than the Gobi Desert.
All right. Beers all round, yeah? Okay, which one of you jokers has got my wallet? Well, I haven't got it. God, he'll do anything to save a few quid.
Yeah, that's right. He's always had short arms and long pockets.
Seriously, guys, someone's nicked it from my bag.
If you lose your wallet, passport or tickets while you're on holiday, your mates winding you up will be the least of your worries. Keep your valuable stuff locked up safely when you don't need it. And if you're on the beach or by the pool, only take the cash you need.
For more information, go to gov.uk/knowbeforeyougo or follow us on Facebook or Twitter.
Hi, I'm Chris Hughes. I sold my company for a pretty decent sum, but low interest rates and inflation gradually eroded my capital.
Chris contacted buytoletcars.com.
It's a simple idea. Buy a car from them and then they just lease it out for you. I now own a fleet of cars, get an average return of 11% per year. The assets give me security and peace of mind. And I've got to say the monthly income is very handy indeed.
For an average 8 to 11% annual return, see buytoletcars.com or call 0800 014 9228.
Confused.com is giving away £1 million for your chance to enter. Buy your car, home, life or travel insurance through Confused.com and you could win a weekly prize of £10,000 or one mega prize of £1 million. How would you feel if you won, Brian?
I'd be as happy as Barry.
Right.
Ends 30th September, Great Britain only, exclusion Northern Ireland, over 18s, terms and conditions apply.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton. With hotels in Germany, Poland, Turkey and the UK.
It's Ask Boris, so let's see who's going to ask Boris next, Mr. Mayor.
We're going now to Peter in Aldwych.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, sir.
Given Margaret Hodges' recent letter to you, do you think it was right for TfL to licence an operator in London that doesn't actually pay UK tax, particularly given that TfL actually receives a great deal of money from the UK taxpayer as a whole?
You're talking about Uber, and I'm
talking about the basic principle.
Yes, and as far as I know, and you have to forgive me, Peter, I can get you the details later, but as far as I know, that we were very concerned about the point Margaret Hodge raised, which was about the tax domicile of Uber, and I think that they changed it to our satisfaction, or they made it clear that they were going to be paying tax in this jurisdiction. That is not, in my view, although that is a problem, that is not the number one problem with Uber. The number one problem with Uber, as you know, Peter, is that they are using mobile phones as what is effectively a taxi meter. And the difficulty there is that although I wanted to, I didn't like the attitude of the company. I thought they were being excessively sort of bumptious in the way they were moving into London and claiming they could take all this business away from black cabs. I thought that we should go by the book, and the TfL lawyers said that there was no way of banning.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but my question wasn't regarding the meter. I'm well aware of the situation regarding the taxi meter and Uber. My question was...
Well, on the tax thing, on the tax thing, as far as I know, they've sorted that out, Peter.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think we're going to...
Do you also think it's right that bookings, private hire bookings, should be made in this country, because you've actually licensed one where the initial hiring isn't made in this country. It's actually made in the country where they take taxes.
I'm in favour of a fair and level playing field for everybody. I understand the point that you make. If I may say respectfully to you, Peter, and to all the taxi drivers who rage against Uber, you have my sympathy. But in the end, there has been no more brilliant advocate of the services of Uber, no more powerful advertisers of that particular brand than the black cab trade. And with respect to it, I haven't mentioned them once. It's you that's mentioned them. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. This company that cannot be named. Then let's do it that way. All right. The unmentionable company that you were demonstrating against the other day is, as far as I know, in conformity with the tax law. As I say, I'm not in sympathy with the unmentionable company on their general approach. We are testing it before the courts. One of the difficulties we've got now is that we wanted to test this fast. The black cab trade insisted on mounting their own legal action. That is going to take longer, and it will be some time before we get a resolution.
Thank you for that, Peter. I've got an email here from Dan in Kent. It's because the back doors are open that the new buses get so hot. That's why they would have wanted to keep the windows closed, because it would have been a sealed unit. If you're opening the doors, you should open the windows. I'm sorry to and I am an engineer, says Dan, by the way.
Okay,
I'm sorry to return to this, but Dan seems to maybe put his finger on it. It's because you've got these doors open that effectively it means that the aircon goes.
Well, Dan may very well be right, and
you're sticking to your guns. That later today, when an LBC reporter spends the best part of his or her afternoon going up and down on buses with a thermometer, they're going to experience no difference on the top of one of your new Route Masters.
I'm told that they're fine on the top deck, but and that
when were you last on the top deck of one of these new buses?
Not so very long ago. I can't give you.
Well, what type of year though?
It was hottish. It was hottish.
Hottish. What does hottish mean?
And it was lovely on that top deck. But I will find out what we can do. I mean, at the moment, what TfL is saying to me is that there is no difference between the heat on those buses and on any other bus.
It'd be helpful if you could open the windows, like the old Route Master. Do you remember those handles you used to crank down? They were glorious.
I do remember. And I will... we'll look at whether we can open the windows, but if that is to solve a genuine problem...
then you'd have the wind blowing through, wouldn't you?
You would indeed, but that might muck up with other ways of
cooling.
Well,
the aircon's clearly not... Well, we will find out. We will find. We move on to other calls.
Keep saying, we go to David in St Albans.
Hello there, Boris. My phone might cut out because I've been hanging on for a long time.
I'm so sorry.
My fault. What's your question?
You there?
The question is, I was going to talk about diesels, but you've already covered that. So just could I ask you, did you do anything about ammonia-powered buses at all?
Oh, wow. I not to my knowledge, David. I don't know about ammonia-powered buses. We're looking at all sorts of fuel cells, fuel techniques. Where I think that we're going to have 25 more electric-only buses. Obviously, as you know, we've got some hydrogen buses on trial. Hydrogen could be fantastic. It's just so incredibly expensive. We think electric is the future. You're going to expect to see a lot more of them. If ammonia can work, or buses running on boiled up rhubarb, I'm all in favour of it. But you need to test this sort of thing out. I will ask TfL about ammonia, and get back to you.
Wendy in Sidcup, what happens when you have your holiday? Have you gone away for the summer yet? Who takes over?
Well, you'll barely... I will go away so briefly you won't feel a thing, Wendy. You won't notice at all. Unless I specifically tell you otherwise, I'm invigilating everything. But in my brief, fleeting absence, the reins of power in City Hall will be held by Statutory Deputy Mayor Victoria Boris, who will be the go-to person. But I will obviously be in constant communication. Can we go now to...
Take that call if we could, yes.
Corinne in
Hyams Park. On you go, Corinne. Unfortunately, that signal broke down. We've lost the call, so we move to Corinne. Corinne, you're through to the Mayor. Go ahead.
Oh, good morning. I'm just phoning up with regard to the situation of not being able to pay cash on the buses.
Right.
A recent experience of my daughter's friend, who is 20 years of age, was that she returned from Oxford into London quite late at night.
Right.
And she didn't have enough money on her Oyster card. She tried to return to North London, Walthamstow area, and was refused onto 3 buses. 3 different bus drivers refused to take or allow her on the bus
They
to
shouldn't
take
do
her the less
They
amount of
shouldn't
money.
do that. They
Ended up going to a McDonald's and was only allowed to stay in the McDonald's until 3 in the morning.
Oh,
and then
dear.
she was told she had to leave the McDonald's, and she sat on the steps of the McDonald's.
Oh, dear.
Circus.
So I think, in
this is-
fairness, the mayor actually is going to say this is totally wrong. We can't hold him responsible if these bus drivers have not observed the law. Stay on the line. Let's
you
listen.
can hold me responsible,
What should
Corey.
they do?
You can hold
What
me
should
responsible
these young
because
women do?
there are buses in our contract. So I'm afraid you're going to have to send us chapter and verse of which buses and which times, because we can easily.
But for other listeners, that's a breach, isn't it?
It is a breach. They're obliged to take you and to be as helpful as they possibly can. And on the cashless payment thing, there's a one more journey approach, which is even if your oysters run out, or if your card has, you've got no cash on your card or whatever, you've got no cash at all, then they will take you and allow
Corrine,
you to top
we
up,
need all the details,
to top up
and we will
later.
hand them over to one of the
I'm
mayors.
very sorry about that experience. It should be unusual.
We have time for a final call.
Stevenage.
Oh yeah, hello chaps.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, good morning. I've just booked a trip to Hong Kong actually, where they've got this marvellous airport island, and I remember, Mr. Mayor, that one of your ideas is about building a new airport in history. I think it's very visionary, but then it just leaves the question: what's going to happen to Heathrow Airport? So my question to you, sir, is: could it become Hounslow Garden City?
Well, it could, and if you go to there's an exhibition on right now in Covent Garden, and we'll get you the details of exactly where it is, and I'm sorry I can't remember it off the top of my head, showing what Heathrow City could look like. And it would be a fantastic place to live, to work. You've got amazing transport links there already, and the possibility of creating homes for tens of thousands of Londoners, possibly 100,000 Londoners could live there. You've got an area the size of Kensington and Chelsea. So your vision is completely right, Steve. We continue to make the case. I think in the long run, when you look at London, get back to the point that Gerald was making right at the beginning of this show.
There we are. Brilliantly put together.
When you get back to the growth of London, the development of the city as the economic powerhouse of Britain and biggest city in Europe, if you want to keep it beautiful, you're going to have to keep using the brownfield sites, keep using the areas of industrial decay, and those are fundamentally in the Thames Gateway region, and that's what we should be doing. And you put an airport there and you get all that area going.
And just before I let you go, my only question, have you now decided whether or not, and even I'm getting bored with this now.
I think if you are going to ask what I think you're going to ask, then let me tell you that I'm so fed up with this. What are you going to... Actually, maybe you're going to ask something interesting. Maybe you're going to ask about, have I now decided to put windows on new generation route masters?
I was going to ask you how the cable car was going, but...
I'll
move on then. So instead I'll ask you, will you be standing in the seat of Uxbridge at next year's general election?
Where I'm going to be sitting is on the cable car. I'm going to find a seat on the cable car, and which has...
Sir John Russell has announced just a couple of weeks ago he is to retire. Will you be standing in the glorious area of Uxbridge?
What I can tell you is that seats are vanishing the whole time on the cable car, where more and more people
will you be standing in Uxbridge, Mr. Mayor, at the next general election?
I will be standing. I'd rather be sitting between Greenwich and Newham on the cable car.
I'm going to keep going on this point. So I'm going to take it that you are, therefore, if you won't answer the question, the only other way to go at this is, will you confirm then that you are going to be seeking election as the MP?
I'll just repeat again. Well, since you asked the same question again, I'm going to repeat my answer. I'm going to continue my mandate and till the end, and also to there's a huge amount still to deliver.
So
you're going to see some great things towards the end of this year.
You're not interested in Uxbridge,
particularly on housing.
Are you interested in Uxbridge?
I'm very interested
in sitting as the MP.
I'm very interested in Uxbridge, which I've been representing solidly for the last.
So you would be considered. You would consider becoming MP for Uxbridge.
I am going to continue to represent Uxbridge until 2060.
And lastly, I'm going on holiday. Well, I'm not actually, but if any of my listeners are going on holiday and they need a good book about Winston Churchill, you don't know if there's one coming out soon, do you?
there might be. There might be. Yeah, watch this space. October the 23rd.
Oh, I thought
you're invited. You're invited to the launch.
I thought it was later this month.
You're invited.
So it's for Christmas.
October the 23rd.
It's got months to go yet. I've been misinformed. All right,
months to go.
You've been listening to Ask Boris with London Mayor Boris Johnson here on LBC. Enjoy your brief summer vacation, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for joining us on LBC, where a travel update is next.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton. From a great night's sleep to the perfect